A loaf sitting in your kitchen right now contains chemicals linked to cancer, behavioral disorders, and chronic disease, and you have no idea it's there. While you've been trusting these billion-pound bread brands to feed your family, they've been using your body as a dumping ground for pesticide cocktails and industrial additives, the same chemicals banned across Europe for being too dangerous. But here's what makes this a scandal. British consumers are eating bread with 50 times more toxic residues than our European neighbors, while food manufacturers face zero consequences for poisoning an entire nation, your toast, your harm, their profit. So, which brands are poisoning Britain's breakfast tables? Let's start with the worst offender. Number 1. Warburton's. Warburton's dominates British kitchens like no other brand. 34% market share. The number 1 bread brand in the UK. Your mum probably bought it. Your grandmother definitely bought it. Walk into any Tesco, Asda, or Sainsbury's, and Warburton's takes up half the bread aisle. Their sliced white medium loaf costs just £1.20. Sounds perfect when you're feeding a family on a budget, right? Here's what they didn't tell you. Every single Warburton's loaf is manufactured using the Chorleywood bread process, an industrial chemical method that replaced traditional baking in the 1,960 seconds. This isn't baking. This is chemical engineering. The process uses high-speed mechanical mixing with hard fats, extra chemical improvers, and double or triple the amount of yeast found in real bread. The dough is violently agitated for 3 minutes at high speed, injected with processing enzymes that never appear on the label, then inflated with improvers and preservatives. Traditional bread ferments for 16 to 24 hours. Warburton's loaves go from flour to plastic bag in 3.5 hours. Your body hasn't evolved to digest bread made this way. The Chorleywood process creates a bread-like substance that looks like bread, toasts like bread, but fundamentally isn't bread. The enzymes they use, phospholipase, alpha-amylase, and transglutaminase, are classified as processing aids under UK law. That means they don't need to appear on the ingredients list. They're invisible. You have no idea you're eating them. These enzymes are often genetically modified and can trigger severe allergic reactions in sensitive individuals. But Warburton's will never tell you they're there because legally, they don't have to. Now look at their wholemeal bread. The label says wholemeal. The packaging shows golden wheat fields. You're thinking wholesome, nutritious, exactly what the doctor ordered. Turn it over and read the ingredients. Soya flour appears alongside wholemeal wheat flour. Not just wheat. Multiple flour types blended together. Why? Because soya flour is cheaper than wheat flour and creates better volume and crumb softness in industrial baking, every single Warburton's wholemeal loaf tested by food researchers contained soya flour. The wholemeal is a lie. But the chemical assault doesn't stop there. Warburton's bread contains calcium propionate, a preservative that keeps your bread shelf-stable for days. Here's what they don't advertise. A 2002 scientific study directly linked calcium propionate to behavioral changes in children, including irritability, restlessness, and sleep disturbances. Europe responded by restricting its use. Britain responded by doing absolutely nothing. Food Standards Agency testing in 2012 found calcium propionate in every single British bread brand tested. Every one. Your children are eating it in their sandwiches every single day. The salt content in Warburton's products averages 1.25 grams per 100 grams. That's above Public Health England's recommended maximum. 2 slices of Warburton's bread, and you've consumed nearly half a gram of salt before you've even added butter or filling. For pensioners with high blood pressure, for anyone at risk of cardiovascular disease, for children whose developing bodies are particularly vulnerable to sodium overload, this is devastating. A University of Leicester study confirmed what bakers have known for decades. Bread made using the Chorleywood process is far more likely to trigger IBS symptoms, bloating, and digestive distress compared to traditionally fermented bread. The lack of proper fermentation means the gluten proteins remain intact and difficult to digest. Your gut bacteria cannot break them down efficiently. You're left feeling bloated, uncomfortable, perpetually sluggish after eating. But here's where the betrayal becomes criminal. Warburton's has known about these issues for decades. The Chorleywood process has been controversial since its invention in 1961. Nutritionists, doctors, and food scientists have repeatedly warned about the health implications. Yet Warburton's continues using it because it's cheaper, faster, and more profitable. They can produce a loaf in hours instead of days. They can use inferior flour and mask it with chemicals. They can charge you premium prices for an industrial product that costs pennies to manufacture. Warburton's controls 34% of the UK bread market. That's millions of loaves every single week. Millions of families eating chemically engineered bread-like substances instead of real bread. And Warburton's faces zero accountability, zero lawsuits, zero consequence. Number 2. Hovis. Hovis built its reputation on heritage. Since 1886, Britain's iconic bread brand. 24% market share across the UK. That famous advertisement with the boy pushing his bicycle up the cobbled hill, delivering Hovis to grateful families. Nostalgia in a plastic wrapper. Your grandfather trusted Hovis. Surely that means something, right? Here's what they don't tell you. Hovis white loaf with starter dough tested as the saltiest bread in a comprehensive consumer analysis, 1.48 grams of salt per 100 grams. That's almost 3 times more salt than the lowest sodium bread tested. Almost 3 times. One loaf of Hovis white bread contains more sodium than you should consume in an entire day, according to NHS guidelines. Let's put that in perspective. A single slice of Hovis white bread contains more salt than a packet of ready salted crisps, more salt than a bag of Walkers. You're feeding your children bread that's saltier than junk food, and Hovis markets it as a family staple. The hypocrisy is staggering. Hovis Granary Loaf, the one marketed as healthier, contains 1.28 grams of salt per 100 grams. Their seeded bread, positioned as the premium health option, contains 1.24 grams. Every single Hovis product line exceeds safe sodium consumption levels. This isn't an accident. This is deliberate formulation designed to create a product that tastes good, lasts long on shelves, and requires minimal quality ingredients because the salt masks everything. But salt is just the beginning. Hovis bread is manufactured using the exact same Corleywood process as Warburton's: high-speed mixing, chemical improvers, hidden enzymes, excessive yeast, minimal fermentation. Food researchers analyzing Hovis wholemeal bread found 3 different types of flour in a product labeled simply as wholemeal. 3 different flours: wheat flour, wholemeal wheat flour, and fermented wheat flour added for freshness. That fermented wheat flour, it's not there for nutrition. It's there to extend shelf life and improve texture without proper fermentation time. The parent company behind Hovis, Gores Group, has faced massive financial losses in recent years. When companies lose money, they cut costs. How do you cut costs in bread manufacturing? Cheaper ingredients, less quality control, maximum use of chemical additives to compensate for inferior flour. You're not buying the same Hovis your grandfather ate. You're buying a cost-engineered approximation using the cheapest possible ingredients that can legally be called bread. British pensioners with hypertension, heart disease, or kidney problems are eating Hovis daily, completely unaware they're consuming dangerous levels of sodium with every slice. The NHS spends billions treating cardiovascular disease. How much of that traces back to excessive salt consumption from supposedly trustworthy bread brands? Hovis will never tell you. The Food Standards Agency won't investigate. You're on your own. Number 3. Kingsmill. Kingsmill holds 17% of the UK bread market. Allied Bakeries, their parent company, produces millions of loaves weekly for British supermarkets. Kingsmill Sandwich White, Kingsmill Tasty Wholemeal, Kingsmill 50 over 50. Their marketing promises soft, fresh bread, perfect for family sandwiches. £1.30 at your local Tesco. Convenient, affordable, trustworthy. Here's what they don't advertise. Kingsmill Sandwich White contains 1.25 grams of salt per 100 grams, matching Warburton's for excessive sodium. But Kingsmill takes the deception further. Their tasty wholemeal bread, marketed as a healthier option for health-conscious families, contains 3 different flour variants. Not pure wholemeal. 3 separate types blended together to create the illusion of wholemeal nutrition while using cheaper ingredients. Food safety investigators discovered that Kingsmill, like every major UK brand, manufactures using the Corleywood process with its full arsenal of chemical additives. Emulsifiers to improve texture, preservatives to extend shelf life, processing enzymes that never appear on labels, hard fats to create structure without proper fermentation. Your Kingsmill loaf contains up to 20 different ingredients when traditional bread requires only 4: flour, water, salt, and yeast. Number 4. Allinson's. Allinson's positions itself as the wholesome choice. The packaging features rustic imagery, natural tones, wholesome family values. It's owned by Allied Bakeries, the same parent company as Kingsmill, but marketed as the premium, healthier alternative. You're paying extra for that Allinson's label, believing you're making a better choice for your family's health. Here's what you're actually buying. Food researchers analyzing Allinson's classic wholemeal bread discovered 4 different types of flour in a product simply labeled wholemeal. 4 separate flour varieties: wholemeal wheat flour, malted wheat flour, and fermented wheat flour added for freshness. That's not wholemeal bread. That's a flour cocktail engineered to maximize profit margins while maintaining the legal minimum to call it wholemeal. That fermented wheat flour they add for freshness, it's a chemical shortcut. Real bread achieves freshness through proper fermentation time, allowing natural bacteria to break down complex proteins and create genuine flavor and texture. Allinson skips that entire process, adds pre-fermented flour, and calls it done. You're paying premium prices for industrial shortcuts. The UK has no standardization for bread labeling. None. A manufacturer can call something wholemeal if it contains any proportion of wholemeal flour, even if the majority consists of cheaper refined alternatives. Allinson's exploits this loophole ruthlessly. The word wholemeal on the front of the package suggests 100% wholemeal nutrition. The ingredients list on the back tells a completely different story. But most consumers never flip the package over. They trust the front label. That trust is being systematically betrayed. Allinson's bread contains the same calcium propionate preservative linked to behavioral problems in children, the same excessive yeast amounts that trigger digestive issues, the same hidden processing enzymes that never appear on ingredient lists. The rustic packaging is pure marketing fiction. What's inside the bag is identical to every other mass-produced industrial loaf. You're paying extra for better branding, not better bread. Number 5. Tesco Own Brand. Tesco Own Brand bread costs as little as 36 pence per loaf. White, brown, wholemeal, seeded, thick, medium, thin. Every variety imaginable at rock-bottom prices. When you're already shopping at Tesco for groceries, grabbing their own brand bread seems like common sense. Save money, same quality, right? Wrong. Factory workers who manufacture supermarket own brand products confirm that the only specification from major retailers is to make it the cheapest possible formula, not comparable quality at lower prices, not good value. The absolute cheapest formula that can legally be called bread under UK regulations. Research shows that 97% of UK households buy wrapped and sliced bread containing additional ingredients like hard fats, extra yeast, processing aids, and E-number additives. Tesco Own Brand exemplifies this reality. The ingredient lists are deliberately vague. Processing aids remain invisible. The specific enzymes used never get disclosed. You have no idea what chemical cocktail you're actually consuming. Tesco sources its bread from multiple industrial bakeries using the Chorleywood process. The quality varies wildly depending on which facility produces your specific loaf and when cost-cutting measures get implemented. Some batches contain more preservatives. Others use lower-grade flour. There's no consistency, no transparency, no accountability. The salt content in Tesco Own Brand products ranges dramatically. Some varieties exceed 1.2 grams per 100 grams. Others fall slightly lower. But all of them rely on the same chemical engineering that makes mass-produced bread possible. Hard fats to create structure. Excessive yeast for rapid rising. Emulsifiers for texture. Preservatives for shelf life. Enzymes to compensate for inferior ingredients. That 36 pence saving costs you in ways that never appear on the price tag. Digestive problems from unfermented gluten, sodium overload stressing your cardiovascular system, behavioral changes in children from calcium propionate, pesticide exposure from non-organic wheat. You're not saving money, you're shifting costs from your wallet to your health. Number 6. Asda Own Brand. Asda's Own Brand bread follows the identical pattern. Cheapest possible formulation, maximum chemical intervention, minimum quality ingredients. The Chorleywood process in its purest, most cost-efficient form. Asda Smart Price white bread costs 39 pence and contains everything wrong with British bread manufacturing compressed into one plastic-wrapped package. The hidden processing enzymes in Asda bread never appear on labels. Phospholipase breaks down fats. Alpha amylase breaks down starches. Transglutaminase bonds proteins together. These genetically modified enzymes are classified as processing aids under UK law, which means manufacturers face zero obligation to disclose them. You're eating genetically modified organisms without knowing it, without choosing it, without any way to avoid it unless you bake your own bread or buy from certified organic bakeries. The salt content varies wildly across Asda's product range, but every variety relies on sodium to mask the inferior flavor of chemically engineered bread. Traditional bread develops complex flavors through fermentation. Industrial bread develops no flavor naturally, so manufacturers add salt, sugar, and chemical flavor enhancers to create the illusion of taste. For families on tight budgets, particularly pensioners on fixed incomes, Asda-owned brand bread seems like the only affordable option. £1 for a week's worth of toast and sandwiches, but that affordability comes with hidden costs that compound over years. Hypertension from excessive sodium, digestive disorders from unfermented gluten, potential cancer risk from pesticide residues. The cheap bread isn't cheap, it's just shifting costs from today to tomorrow. Number 7. M&S. Thick white super soft loaf. Marks & Spencer positions itself as premium quality. Higher prices, better ingredients, more trustworthy than standard supermarkets. Their thick white super soft loaf costs £1.30, marketed as indulgent, quality bread worth the premium price. Here's the reality. That super soft texture you're paying extra for comes from aggressive chemical processing. The loaf contains 1.03 grams of salt per 100 grams, still significantly above safe consumption levels. But what makes this loaf particularly troubling is the level of processing required to achieve that unnaturally soft texture. Real bread has structure, it has bite, it has texture that comes from properly developed gluten networks and fermentation. Super soft bread achieves its texture through multiple emulsifiers and dough conditioners. The more chemicals required to make bread behave in unnatural ways, the further you move from actual food into food-like substances. M&S bread contains calcium propionate preservatives. It's made using high-speed industrial processes. It contains hidden enzymes. The premium price point buys you better packaging and branding, not better nutrition. The bread inside the bag is manufactured using the same fundamental process as every other mass-produced loaf. You're paying 30% more for the illusion of quality. Middle-class families shopping at M&S believe they're making healthier choices for their children. The premium pricing reinforces that belief. Surely more expensive bread must be better bread. But price and quality have completely disconnected in modern bread manufacturing. The cheapest ingredients produce the highest margins when dressed up in premium packaging. But before I tell you the 3 brands actually worth your money, you need to understand why this scandal exists in the first place. The systemic betrayal. Britain's bread industry operates under regulatory standards that are decades out of date and deliberately designed to favor manufacturers over consumers. The bread you're eating today is fundamentally different from bread consumed by previous generations, yet the regulations haven't changed since the Chorleywood process was invented in 1961. Supermarkets are not obliged to disclose additives in bread beyond basic ingredients. Processing aids, enzymes, and chemical improvers remain completely invisible to consumers. The law classifies them as manufacturing necessities rather than ingredients, which means they never appear on labels. You're eating genetically modified enzymes, industrial emulsifiers, and chemical dough conditioners without any way to know they're there. The UK has no standardization for bread labeling. None. A manufacturer can call a loaf wholemeal if it contains any amount of wholemeal flour, even if the majority consists of refined white flour and cheaper alternatives like soya. The word wholemeal suggests 100% wholemeal content to consumers. The legal reality is completely different. Every major brand exploits this loophole systematically. Government testing in 2021 found that 50% of British bread contains multiple pesticide residues, not single pesticides. Multiple pesticides simultaneously creating chemical cocktails inside every loaf. Glyphosate, classified as a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization, appeared in 30% of bread samples. 11 different pesticides were detected, including 5 directly linked to cancer. Chlormequat, a growth regulator banned in organic farming, appeared in 97% of bread samples tested. But here's what makes this truly horrifying. These aren't trace amounts from environmental contamination. Glyphosate is deliberately sprayed on wheat crops immediately before harvest as a desiccant to speed up drying. Farmers are intentionally coating your wheat in probable carcinogens days before it gets milled into flour. The residues concentrate in the final product. You're eating bread deliberately contaminated with cancer-causing chemicals. The situation gets worse. Recent testing discovered that levels of TFA, a type of PFAS forever chemical, in British bread are up to 400 times higher than levels found in drinking water. These chemicals accumulate in your body over time. They never break down. They're linked to cancer, hormone disruption, immune system damage, and developmental problems in children. They're in your bread, in organic bread, in premium bread, in budget bread, everywhere. 0 UK lawsuits have been filed against Warburton's, Hovis, Kingsmill, Allied Bakeries, or any major bread manufacturer. Not one, despite British consumers experiencing identical health problems to populations in countries where bread standards are stricter, despite clear evidence of harmful chemicals, despite decades of scientific warnings, zero compensation, zero accountability, zero consequences. The Food Standards Agency conducts zero proactive testing of bread products for chemical contamination. They rely entirely on consumer complaints, a reactive system that allows dangerous products to remain on shelves indefinitely. Most people never connect their digestive problems to their bread. They think it's stress, aging, genetics, anything except the daily staple they've trusted their entire lives. They never file complaints, so regulators take no action. The UK lacks robust class action mechanisms for food safety cases. Individual consumers bear all costs of proving harm. For a 1-pound loaf of bread, legal action is economically impossible. Even if you could prove your health problems stem directly from contaminated bread, the legal cost would exceed any possible compensation by thousands of pounds. You're completely on your own. More than a third of breads worldwide contain more salt than Public Health England's recommended maximum. In Britain, that figure is even higher. 75% of supermarket bread contains more salt per slice than a packet of crisps, 3/4. You're feeding your children bread saltier than junk food and calling it a healthy meal. The rising obesity epidemic and the huge rise in celiac disease since the 1960 seconds correlates directly with the introduction of the Corleywood process. Correlation isn't causation, but when you fundamentally change how an entire nation's staple food gets manufactured and immediately see dramatic increases in digestive disorders, gluten sensitivity, and chronic disease, you have to ask questions. Questions the Food Standards Agency refuses to investigate. Number 8. Aldi Village Bakery, both in one. Aldi has revolutionized British grocery shopping with rock-bottom prices that undercut every competitor. Their Village Bakery, both in one bread, costs 85 pence and promises the best of both worlds, half white, half brown in a single loaf. Perfect for families where some members prefer white and others prefer brown, all without buying 2 separate loaves. Here's what that 85 pence actually buys you. Village Bakery both in one contains 0.96 grams of salt per 100 grams. Still dangerously high, still well above safe consumption guidelines, still contributing to Britain's hypertension crisis one slice at a time. But Aldi's real deception lies in their complete lack of ingredient transparency. Budget retailers like Aldi operate on the thinnest possible margins. Every penny matters. They achieve low prices through aggressive cost-cutting at every stage of production. That means cheapest possible flour, often imported from countries with lower agricultural standards. That means maximum use of chemical additives to compensate for poor quality ingredients. That means the Corleywood process pushed to its absolute limits. Aldi sources bread from contract manufacturers who produce for multiple supermarket chains simultaneously. The same factory making premium M and S bread also makes budget Aldi bread, but with completely different specifications. Same equipment, same production lines, radically different ingredient quality. The Aldi specification: make it as cheap as possible while remaining legally sellable as bread. The both-in-one concept itself reveals the manufacturing reality. Real bread cannot be half white and half brown in a single baking process. The two dough types require different fermentation times, different hydration levels, different handling. To make both-in-one work in an industrial setting requires extensive chemical intervention, extra emulsifiers to bond the two halves together, extra preservatives to ensure both sides age at the same rate, extra processing aids to create structural integrity that would normally develop through proper fermentation. You're not buying bread. You're buying an engineered food product designed to maximize shelf appeal and minimize production costs. The 85 pence price tag seems like incredible value until you understand what you're actually consuming. Number 9. Morrison's own brand. Morrison's operates its own in-house bakeries in many stores, creating the illusion of fresh, locally made bread. You can smell it baking as you walk through the entrance. Warm, inviting, wholesome. Surely bread baked on site must be healthier than factory-produced alternatives, right? Wrong. Those in-store bakeries receive frozen par-baked loaves manufactured in industrial facilities using the Corleywood process. The stores simply finish the baking process, creating the smell and appearance of fresh bread while delivering the exact same chemically engineered product as every other supermarket brand. Morrison's own brand sliced bread, manufactured off-site and delivered wrapped, contains all the standard issues: excessive salt, hidden enzymes, calcium propionate preservatives, multiple flour types in wholemeal products. Some Morrison's products exceed 1.1 grams of salt per 100 grams. Some use even more emulsifiers and conditioners than competitor brands to achieve their marketed softness. But what makes Morrison's particularly problematic is the deceptive marketing around their in-store bakeries. Consumers believe they're buying fresher, healthier bread because it's baked on site. The reality is identical mass-produced dough, identical chemical composition, identical health risks, just with better theater. You're paying for the performance of fresh baking, not actual fresh bread. The inconsistent quality controls across Morrison's stores mean pesticide residues, salt content, and additive levels vary depending on which supplier manufactured your specific loaf. There's no consistency, no transparency, no way to know what you're actually getting. One week your loaf might come from supplier A with slightly better standards. The next week it's supplier B cutting every possible corner. You're gambling with your family's health every time you grab a Morrison's loaf. Number 10. Sainsbury's own brand. Sainsbury's positions itself as a quality-conscious supermarket, a step above Asda and Tesco, more accessible than Waitrose. Their own brand bread costs between 80 pence and £1 and 20 pence depending on the variety. The labeling emphasizes taste, softness, and family-friendly nutrition. Here's the truth. While Sainsbury's made some improvements to salt content in recent years, many products still rely on the Corleywood process with its full arsenal of chemical additives. The processing aids that never appear on labels remain universal across all Sainsbury's bread. The enzymes that can trigger allergic reactions stay invisible to consumers. The pesticide residues from non-organic wheat contaminate every conventional loaf. Sainsbury's white bread contains emulsifiers E471 and E472E. These mono and diglycerides of fatty acids can hide trans fats and have been linked to gut microbiome disruption in recent studies. Your gut bacteria, the foundation of your immune system, are being damaged by the emulsifiers in your daily bread. The long-term consequences of chronic gut microbiome disruption include inflammatory bowel disease, obesity, diabetes, and even mental health disorders through the gut-brain axis. Sainsbury's wholemeal products follow the same deceptive pattern as every other major brand. Multiple flour types blended together, soya flour added for cost savings and texture, fermented wheat flour for artificial freshness. The word wholemeal on the packaging suggests wholesome nutrition. The ingredients list tells a completely different story. For middle-class families shopping at Sainsbury's, the assumption is that you're making better choices than budget supermarkets. Slightly higher prices must mean better quality. But in British bread manufacturing, price and quality have completely disconnected. The profit margins are higher at Sainsbury's, but the bread inside the bag is manufactured using the same industrial processes, the same chemical shortcuts, the same cost-engineered formulations. What makes Sainsbury's particularly frustrating is the wasted potential. As a major retailer with significant buying power, Sainsbury's could demand better standards from suppliers. They could require traditional fermentation methods. They could eliminate hidden processing aids. They could source organic wheat to avoid pesticide contamination. They choose not to because chemical engineering is cheaper, faster, and more profitable. So, here's what actually works. The solution. If you're looking for safe, effective bread that won't poison your family with pesticide cocktails and chemical additives, you need to completely rethink how you buy bread. The solution isn't finding a slightly better mass-produced brand. The solution is escaping the industrial bread system entirely. The Real Bread campaign maintains a directory of bakeries across the UK that use traditional fermentation methods with only 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, and yeast. Nothing else. No hidden enzymes. No chemical improvers. No hard fats or emulsifiers. Real fermentation lasting 16 to 24 hours that allows natural bacteria to break down gluten proteins and create genuinely digestible bread. You'll find Real Bread campaign certified bakeries in nearly every town across Britain. These aren't expensive artisan boutiques. These are working bakeries, serving local communities with honest bread at fair prices. A traditionally fermented sourdough loaf costs between £2.50 and £4.50. Yes, that's more expensive than 36 pence Tesco white bread. But you're buying actual food, not a chemical experiment. Here's what that extra £2 actually buys you. 0 pesticide residues because most traditional bakeries use organic flour. 0 hidden enzymes because traditional fermentation doesn't need them. 0 excessive yeast because proper fermentation uses minimal amounts. 0 digestive problems because the fermentation process breaks down difficult to digest proteins. 0 behavioral problems in children because there's no calcium propionate preservative. The traditional fermentation process creates bread that's genuinely nutritious. The bacteria produce B vitamins during fermentation. The long fermentation time breaks down phytic acid, making minerals more bioavailable. The flavor develops naturally without needing salt, sugar, or chemical enhancers. Your body recognizes it as real food and digests it properly. If you're on a tight budget and can't afford artisan bakery prices, Waitrose rye and wheat dark sourdough costs £2.20 and contains just 0.51 grams of salt per 100 grams. That's less than half the sodium of Hovis white bread. It's made using traditional sourdough fermentation with organic rye flour. You'll find it in Waitrose stores and many independent retailers who stock Waitrose products. The ingredient list is transparent. Organic rye flour, water, wheat flour, salt, yeast. That's it. 5 ingredients. No hidden enzymes, no emulsifiers, no preservatives, no chemical improvers, just bread, the way bread should be. For those dealing with digestive issues, IBS, bloating, or suspected gluten sensitivity, switching to traditionally fermented bread often eliminates symptoms entirely. Research confirms that breads fermented for 16 hours or longer are far less likely to trigger IBS symptoms compared to Chorleywood processed bread. Your problem might not be gluten at all. Your problem might be eating chemically engineered food-like substances instead of real bread. Now, if you want the absolute best bread available in the UK, independent artisan bakeries represent 60 years of traditional baking expertise concentrated into every loaf. Yes, a sourdough loaf costs £4 to £6 at local bakeries, farmers markets, or specialist retailers. But here's why it's worth every single pound. This isn't just safe bread. This is optimal nutrition specifically formulated for human digestion through thousands of years of evolutionary adaptation. Developed by master bakers, tested through generations of consumption, proven effective through centuries of traditional practice. Artisan sourdough contains naturally occurring probiotics from the fermentation process that support your gut microbiome rather than destroying it. The long fermentation creates complex flavors that satisfy you with less food. You'll eat 1 or 2 slices of real bread and feel satisfied, whereas industrial bread leaves you hungry and reaching for more because it lacks genuine nutrition. A 5-pound loaf lasting 5 days breaks down to £1 daily. You're already spending £1.20 on industrial bread that actively damages your health. Redirect that spending to products developed by actual master bakers. Products using traditional methods refined over centuries. Products treating your digestive system as something to nourish, not a chemical dumping ground for corporate profit. The practical reality. The best choice is learning to bake your own bread. A 1.5 kilogram bag of organic strong bread flour costs £2.50 and produces 3 large loaves. That's 83 pence per loaf for bread you control completely. You choose organic flour to avoid pesticides. You choose the salt level. You use only 4 ingredients. You ferment it properly overnight. The time investment is minimal. 10 minutes of work spread across 24 hours while the fermentation happens automatically. Bread machines cost £40 to £80 and last for years. They mix, knead, and bake automatically while you sleep. Load the ingredients before bed, wake up to fresh bread, no chemicals, no pesticides, no deception, just real bread that nourishes rather than harms. If you cannot bake and cannot afford artisan bread, the minimum standard is choosing bread with fewer than 7 ingredients, organic certification to avoid pesticides, and evidence of traditional fermentation like sourdough cultures. Avoid anything mentioning the Chorleywood process. Avoid anything ultra-soft or with extended shelf life beyond 3 to 4 days. Real bread goes stale quickly because it contains no preservatives. That staleness is proof of authenticity. Sometimes the safe choice costs exactly the same as the dangerous one. You just need to know which loaf to pick up. Your body deserves real food, not chemical engineering disguised as bread. Which brand shocked you the most? Drop your experience in the comments. And if you want to watch a video like this one, click the video on the screen. Thanks for watching.